What's up, family? It's your girl Raquel Sade. Thank you for joining me again to the Upperroom Community Podcast. We are here to elevate in mindset, habit, and spirit. I'm glad to be back for another episode. This is part 2 of the part 1. So if you missed part 1, go back and watch it. The very last episode when we are discussing the power of agreement. Last episode, we discussed breaking agreements, and the most important part is making agreements. So this is part 2, and we're going to be discussing the importance in making new agreements. I don't know about y'all, but I actually really enjoyed the last episode. I'm very proud of how it came out. I think I did a great job articulating my message without having to say too much. I'm still working on that. It's a task, I'm not gonna lie. But I was very happy about last episode, and I'm just glad that it went smoothly. And it got a couple of more views than it usually does. I am working on being more consistent in terms of posting, like promoting the podcast, so that people know I'm out here. But another thing that I really have to do, I don't know if I really want to do that right now, just because I'm still trying to figure out my life. But I need to be more consistent with making the episodes. I have to do once a week. And, yeah. If you're here, I definitely have to do one episode a week. But, I'm asking God for the grace to be able to do so. I don't want to say no. I don't want to say it's not going to happen. But I definitely need the grace to do it, because only God could do it through me. Because the time goes by way too fast. I just don't even know how we get through a week. The time is ridiculous. And I feel like, I'm just trying to figure out life right now. And I have a lot of aspects in my life that I'm going towards, and that I'm figuring out, and that I'm accomplishing. So it's like, bro, a week already and I gotta record again. I think there's some things like lately I haven't been going to the gym, not because of laziness and not because I don't want to go to the gym, but because I'm choosing to pursue other areas of my life so much harder. It's like, dang, when do I even have time for the gym? So I'm trying to reevaluate my schedule as well, see where I can fit things in. That definitely requires me to be disciplined on waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is not so bad. I do enjoy waking up at 5 a.m., but sometimes I don't, because it requires a discipline to go to bed at 10 p.m. And that's the hard part, because I'm more of a night person than a morning person. So yeah, Lord, give me the strength to do this once a week, because I do want to do it once a week. I actually enjoy podcasting. It's funny because coming up to the episodes, most times I kind of dread it, because I think I'm just going to fumble the bag. But then as I start speaking, and going with the flow, I leave recording feeling accomplished and feeling excited. So I do enjoy podcasting. I do enjoy talking to you guys. I do enjoy having conversation. I'm a conversationalist. So let's hope that the Upper Room Community Podcast comes to your screen once a week. Anywho, let's get into this episode. I think that this episode is, if not just as important, maybe more important, to be honest with you, than the last one. And the reason why I say that is because so much times in society, we're so focused on what we're leaving behind, but we're not focused on what we're going towards. And so a lot of people can get stuck in what they just left, the past season they were just in. And like I discussed in the last episode, you can physically leave it, but if that's something that's still taking up this mental capacity, if that's something that's still having power over you in your life, then you might as well had stayed in the same place that you just left. So this episode to me is much more important, because this is about intention, and this is about facing a different direction and fixating your mind and your intention to that new direction, instead of fixating it on the place that you just left. And so it's important to figure out what we're stepping into, what we're making agreements with, because we have to understand in life that coming from is also giving you the opportunity to come into. And we always have to remember that we are stepping into something new. We're stepping into a new era or a new way about ourselves, new habits, a new lifestyle, a new relationship, whatever it is that you're stepping into. I think it's important to recognize that coming from gives you the open door to come into. And so we have to focus on what we're coming into. And the why behind that is so important. Why am I stepping into this new thing? That is important to recognize in the times of difficulty or in the times where, going back to the past seems so much easier. The why is so important. Why you're stepping into something new is your anchor to keep you in the times where things seem either impossible or seem stressful or any of those sorts. I'm really hoping that I'm going to make sense in this episode, so please bear with me. Identifying the why is so important because we can know reasons why we're leaving something, but knowing why you want to pursue something else is also just as important, because it is that reason that's going to keep you in the turmoil, is that reason that's going to keep you in the times where it may seem impossible or extremely difficult, or the times when you want to give up. Because let's be honest, we always, not always, but we do have the tendency to want to give up on the things that we're pursuing, or, is this even something that I'm supposed to be pursuing? Am I going in the right direction? All of these different things, they do come up in these periods of transition. And so knowing why you're pursuing something is so important, because it keeps you balanced and it keeps you focused on what it is that you're pursuing. And let me say, if you are pursuing something and you don't know why, if you're pursuing something based off of somebody else's dream, based off somebody else's lifestyle, based off what somebody else told you, or you saw success in somebody else's life, so you thought it was smart to pursue it, I would challenge you to reevaluate what it is that you are pursuing. It is important to have your personal reasoning behind why you are approaching a new thing in life. A lot of people, especially in this day and age, it's so easy to there's a lot of gurus in this world. There's a lot of people that know it all. There's a lot of people that, especially when it comes to making money and different methods on having success, there's so many different avenues that seem successful, and we can get caught up in those different lifestyles. And then because we see it so often through social media and different avenues, we start to think that that's something that we should be doing, because we tend to take on other people's lifestyles based off of what we want for ourselves. Same reason why, for an example, I know growing up, a lot of people that I know are scammers, right? And a lot of people, I know for certain, yes, there's some people that scam because of circumstance and things are tough, not denying that, but there are a lot of circumstances where your life isn't perfect, but it's not as tough as the next person that's scamming. But because you see the things that come with it, because you see the things that look good or look fun, you're like, all right, well, I don't really have those things, and it looks like it's working out for that person, so let me jump into it. I think we tend to downplay how much other people influence us. We are able to acknowledge when somebody influences us when it's beneficial to us. But I think that we tend to deny how much another person influences us in areas where we don't want to admit it, or in areas where it causes us to feel down about our own selves. We tend to downplay other people's role they have in our lives in terms of influencing us. Why? I think because that may make us seem weak-minded, or may make us seem, I think it will probably just hurt your pride as an individual when it comes to admitting the role people play in influencing your life, if it's not something that is in alignment with what you got going on already. And a lot of people, there's tons of people that influence me, right? But there's also, in encountering social media and stuff, different stuff like that, there's a ton of people that influence me in a negative way, right? In the sense of, if I see someone, I'm like, dang, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Or I'll take on certain things about myself because I see what somebody else is doing, and that could possibly affect me, right? That used to happen a lot, not so much anymore. But I do think it's important that when I used to recognize that, I'm like, all right, I got to get off social media. Like, I'm getting too much influence on social media to the point where it's affecting me mentally, and it's making me down, or it's making me condemn myself. So I got to step away from it. I think that if we can truly recognize it and accept it, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a lot of people, we love to say like, oh, people are our biggest haters and blah, 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 stuff like that. But I really think it's true that we do influence other people, and other people do influence us. And sometimes people don't like to admit it. And because they don't like to admit it, it produces like a negative fruit in that person's life. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that all ties into why your why is important, and making sure that your why has to do with you, and not because somebody else has influenced you to do it, or because it's a product of somebody else's life and it looked beneficial in somebody else's life, so you chose to put that on for yourself. Just making sure that your why is authentic to you, and that it's a strong enough anchor to keep you in those challenging times. Because there's so many people, like, for an example, when I go on social media, or not social media, when I go on YouTube, one time I had went through my subscriptions, right, to see who I've subscribed to. And I know I subscribed to a couple of like old friends at the time when they started their channel, or different things like that. And it's seeing how so many people had started something and they just stopped, right? They didn't pick it back up. It's been 4 years. It's been 5 years. It's been to almost 10 years, right? And they didn't pick it back up. They started it, but they didn't really finish it. Not saying that they were possibly influenced by somebody else, but what I'm bringing that up to say is, was their why, the reason why they were starting to start a YouTube channel or vlogging or whatever it was their why strong enough to keep them anchored through the turmoil in life, or through the ebbs and flows of life, that although those things were happening, they were still able to continue and pursue the vlogging and pursuing the YouTube channel and things of that nature. For an example, when I started this podcast, right, I stopped for a couple of months, and I had to recognize, and I had to pull back to myself why I was doing this, right? And it was a lot more complicated in why I stopped. I think I had to reevaluate certain things, but it is important that when you feel that mood to like give up something or to not continue to pursue it, our why is important. Our why keeps us going, and it keeps us pushing to the next level to obtain the thing that we know we're here to obtain. If we don't have that anchor, we're going to be tossed back and forth. We're going to be beat up by life, because life is full of ebbs and flows. Life is full of disruptions. Life is full of things that we don't expect. But if our why is able to anchor us in those scenarios and in those times where things are out of our control, we will continue, or be able to continue to pursue what it is that we set out to do in the first place. So that is my spiel. That is what I'm trying to say. Whew. Why you're doing something also keeps you anchored in times when you want to go backwards, right? When you want to go backwards, the reason why you want to go forward should be able to keep you in those times where you feel like you want to go backwards, when you miss the old days, when you miss when life was easy. And these are, pursuing something new isn't always easy, right? I know a lot of people say like, in order to live an easy life, you have to do the hard things first, right? But if you want to live a hard life, you have to live an easy life, in the sense of, you don't do anything that challenges you. You don't do anything that puts you outside of your comfort zone. And in living that continuously easy to do life, you wind up having a hard one. But if you choose now to say, all right, I'm gonna have to hustle this through. I'm gonna have to do the hard things. I'm gonna have to walk this out by myself. I'm going to have to pursue this thing alone. Then you will down the road have an easier life if you choose to do those things that are uncomfortable for you. And that is honestly like the era that I'm in now, right? With real estate and different stuff like that. I'm like, listen, it might be uncomfortable trying to like talk to people and pursue and really hustle and bustle, right? It might be uncomfortable sometimes to sit in front of this camera and actually talk to it and post this for other people to see, because I have no problem talking, but it's the part of sometimes, like today I sat down and I'm like, I have my notes, but truthfully, I'm like, I don't know what I'm about to talk about. I don't know what I'm about to say. So Lord, please fill my mouth to have the proper words to get this message out there. Like, so it's times like that where I don't feel like recording. I don't feel like sitting in front of this camera. I just want to lay in my bed and scroll on TikTok or something. I just want to be in my solitude, right? But I had to choose to continue to pursue and do the hard things. Like recording once a week, it may not start to easy. Like it might not be an easy task. But if that's something I know that I have to do, I got to do the hard things so that things can become easier. It's just like riding a bike. It's easier not knowing how to ride a bike. It's easier continuing not to know how to ride the bike, right? And to just walk your way through. Going through the process of learning how to ride the bike, you may fall, you may get scared, you may shake a little bit, you may have almost run into a freaking car, like stuff like that. But then once you get the hang of it, it's an easier mode of transportation. So now it's much faster than just walking on your 2 feet. And it's much easier to get from one direction to the next, one destination, to the next on a bike than walking. So we got to choose what we want to do. And it's your reasoning why is what's going to help propel you in those moments where learning it may be difficult or taking the steps may be difficult. And I'm nailing this in because I know so many of us are dealing with that, right? We all deal with it in different areas of our life, whether that's with your career, whether that's with staying in your solitude, or whether that's growing in your relationship with God, or whatever it may be, going back to school or whatever. There's so many areas in our life where we are dealing with having to choose to do the uncomfortable in order to pursue something new. And having that why is so important, and anchoring you so that you don't go back and stay in the place that you were already trying to leave. The perfect example was in the story with Sodom and Gomorrah, right? When God gave Lot time to escape. And he told Lot and his wife, he told Lot and his family not to look back at the city when it was being destroyed, and to keep looking forward. And they're escaping the city, and his wife looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt, right? And that story to me is signifying that when you are stepping away from something, there's going to be chaos in it. It's not going to be an easy thing, right? There's probably going to be some things that feel like your world is ending, or it might, be like turmoil. For an example, like if God calls you to leave your job, or if you feel like, oh, I want to go full time in this area. For an example, like I'm an agent, but I still have a job, right? For the meantime. And if he was to tell me to leave my job and go full time in doing real estate, my income is gone, right? Like stable income every 2 weeks. My income is gone for temporarily. And so I can either continue to pursue my calling or pursue that new destination in the turmoil, or I can choose to calcify myself and be stuck looking back. And that's essentially what happened to Lot's wife. She left, but she wasn't fixated on the destination. She was fixated on the place that she just left. Her heart was still in the place that she just left. And in the turmoil, she wasn't looking towards the destination. So it is important that we look towards the destination and we don't look back. We continue to pursue until we reach the destination. One good example of that is in Ephesians 4. I think too, as a young person, and not even just as young people, but there's always areas in our life where we can choose to leave because it is holding us hostage. There's always areas in our lives, not always, let me not say always, but in our stages of life, there are going to be areas that we have to choose to leave behind because it's holding us hostage, or it's negative on our part, right? Whatever that is, think about that, whatever it is in your life. And we have to choose to leave those things behind in order to pursue something greater, right? It's important that we recognize we cannot walk into new spaces with old habits. We cannot walk into new spaces with old mindsets. We might be able to get in those doors, but will we be able to maintain? We might not even be able to get into those doors, to be completely honest with you. There's certain places in our life where the old us will not be able to walk into those doors. And everyone can agree and attest to that. There's just certain places in our life that we have to shed off old habits, old ways, old mindsets in order to step into this new place and new area, because we have to be built and shaped for that area. There's certain doors that we won't be able to fit in unless we shed things off. And so the perfect scripture for that is Ephesians 4, starting at verse 17. I'm going to read verse 17 and then jump down to verse 22. Verse 17 says, "You shall no longer walk as the rest of the unbelievers walk, in the futility of their mind." What stood out to me in verse 17 is that you shall no longer walk as the rest of the unbelievers walk. The word that's sticking out to me is the word walk. And then verse 22, it says, "You need to put off concerning your former conduct the old man which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, that you put on the new man which is created according to God in true righteousness and holiness." So there's two things that stood out to me. Is one, in verse 17, the instruction is to no longer walk as the rest of the unbelievers walk, right? To no longer walk in the old way that you used to walk. And then in verse 22, it's speaking about putting off your former conduct, your former behavior, and then to be renewed in the spirit of your mind. So the two things that stuck out to me was walking and renewing in the spirit of your mind. The instruction to no longer walk in your old ways was important to me, because walking is a verb. It is an action, and it is something that we are constantly doing, right? And walking is innate to us. The perfect example I might have for this is like choosing to walk forward. When you're leaving the old man behind, that is something that is past, something that you are no longer trying to pursue. So you're walking forward. As a human being, as an able-bodied human being, thank God that I am able-bodied, and whoever is listening or watching this, having an able body, walking is innate. You don't really think about it. You get up and you just do it, walking forward. However, if you choose to walk backwards, that is not innate. We actually have to think about it. It may be easier while we're younger and stuff, but I know y'all saw that video of Charles Barkley trying to run backwards and he winded up falling, right? So walking backwards is it's not something that we just do. We continuously walk forward. And so I bring this up to say that it is important that pursuing what is better becomes innate for us, that we practice it so much that it just becomes a habit that we don't even think about, but we just do it. Versus walking backwards is something that we have to consciously program our minds to do. We have to consciously think about it when we are walking backwards. And we're going to want to look back while walking backwards too sometimes, because we don't know what's behind us. We're not programmed to walk backwards. We're programmed to walk forward. So I think that our habits, we have to make it a priority to continuously pursue the greater thing that is before us, to continuously pursue the goodness and to shed off what was holding us back as a people. Even with changing directions, right? When we are walking, changing directions first starts in your mind. If you're walking down a block and you know you have to turn left, you're already saying to yourself you're turning left prior to turning left. So what is being manifested in your mind is what gives you the power to act it out in the physical. So we have to learn to program our minds so that it is a habit for us to walk in the direction that we are supposed to walk in. It doesn't happen first physically. There's something that happens in the mind first, and then because there was a programming in the mind, that programming then gives us the power to do so and act it out physically. So that is something that we have to consciously pursue and do until it becomes innate for us. And that is exactly what that verse is saying to us, right? The first instruction was to no longer walk as the rest of the unbelievers walk. Then the next instruction was to put off the former conduct, right? And that the third instruction is to be renewed in the spirit of your mind. In that you put on the new man which was created. So put on your new man. That is something that happens through the renewing of your mind. Exactly what I just said. There's something that has to first connect in your mind in order for you to act something out. And so the instruction is to renew your mind. When it says to be renewed in the spirit of your mind, it is talking about your soul, right? The definition of that word spirit means the vital principle by which the body is animated, the rational spirit, the power by which the human being feels, thinks, decides, which is your soul. It also means the disposition or influence which fills and governs the soul of any person, the efficient source of any power, affection, emotion, desire, etc. So your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. Those are the three things your soul is comprised of. And so it is important that we focus more on the soul, because the what is in the soul is what gives us the power to act out what is in the physical. Everything in the physical first starts from something that is unseen. There is an unseen realm out there, and it doesn't have to mean like be super hocus pocus, right? Like even like a table. A man had to first create the table in his mind before he was able to physically build out the table. So everything that is seen now first came from something that is unseen. And so we have to focus more on the unseen realm in order to pursue and push out so that we can actually see the tangible. You have to become what you want to be tangible first in the intangible, if you get what I'm saying. It first happens in the unseen. If that person didn't believe that it was possible to make a table, if that person didn't first believe in their mind that they created a table, the table would not have been created. It had to first be structured and built out in their mind and in their thoughts and their soul. From creating that image and structure in their mind, then forth gave them the power to create it physically. And so that's what I'm trying to say when it comes to walking. Walking is an action, and it's not necessarily something that is conscious for us, right? Because it is a habit that we have enacted for such a long time. When we were babies and we had to learn how to walk, it wasn't innate for us to walk. It took practice. We fell, we messed up a couple times, but we continued to pursue and move forward until we were able to walk. And now it's just innate for us. And thank God that walking isn't a task, right? So it's the same thing with pursuing the new thing. It's going to take practice. We might stumble, we might fall a few times, but in the acting it out and taking the conscious effort, right? And first manifesting it in your soul. And when I mean manifesting it, I just mean making it a physical thing first in our soul. We are able to pursue that intangible thing to make it tangible. I feel like, I hope I'm making sense. I really hope I do. All I'm trying to explain here is that we have to come into agreement with the intangible. And if we don't first come into agreement with the intangible, it will not become something that is physical and actually tangible for us to hold. When you're breaking off an old agreement, you are breaking off something that was already set in place, already set in stone. And so that's why sometimes it can be so easy to want to go back, to want to backpedal and go back to the place where we just were, because that was something that was tangible and physical for us. That was something that we've encountered, that we've experienced. But whatever we are trying to leave, right, to go forward to, or not trying to, but whatever we're leaving in efforts to go forward to something new, we haven't experienced that newness yet. We have not experienced what it was like. And that is something that is temporarily intangible. It is important to focus on the things that are unseen, because the more time we spend on the things that we've already encountered and the things that we've already seen, the less time we are actually spending in making the unseen tangible. We have to build up the stamina and have the effort to pursue the intangible. So that first happens in the soul. Your soul gives you the power to do such a thing. Just like for that perfect example with making the table. Whoever invented the table before they've invented the table, if you get what I'm saying. They first made and invented the table in their mind, in their soul, and through that, they were able to actually build it out physically. Same thing with whatever that we are seeing here in the physical realm. It had to first be manifested in a space that was not yet physical, was not yet tangible. And so we have to come into agreement with the things that we cannot see, but we know is possible. Yes, very much so. That is the most important part. And that's where it comes to like having prayer, right? And not being so focused on our challenges, and not being so focused on the setbacks, not being so focused on the things that we see right now that may be challenging, because these are distractions that are keeping us from pursuing the intangible. All of these things that come to shake us up, that come to take us off of our path, that come to bring us frustration, right? Those are all things that were mechanically engineered to distract us. A lot of these things were mechanically engineered to distract us. But if you learn to use it to your benefit, it can actually be used to help you grow closer to the intangible. Very much so. This was not in my notes, but I want to go to it. Okay, I found it. All right, so the perfect example is in Matthew 13 in verse 20. So Jesus was talking about a parable. Well, not talking about a parable. He was speaking a parable, a story, to explain the principles of what happens when we receive a word, right? When we receive the word of God, when we receive revelation or instruction, or when we receive an idea, when we receive what it is that we're supposed to be pursuing, the instruction, the direction. What happens when we receive that? There's I think there were four different soil that the seed fell on, that the word fell on. So those represented our hearts. I highly encourage y'all to go and read Matthew 13 if you haven't. But I'm going to read verse 20. It says, he's explaining the parable. He who received the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. So whoever received an idea and was like, oh, that's such a great idea, right? For an example, oh, that's such a great idea for me to start a podcast. Such a great idea for me to start a YouTube channel. Such a great idea for me to pursue whatever. Such a great idea for me to leave behind whatever lifestyle to pursue something different, right? He receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. So it literally just said, which is crazy, when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. There's going to be persecution. There's going to be something that comes to distract you. Whenever you are pursuing an idea that makes sense, that is meant for you to pursue, there's going to be division and turmoil. There's going to be something that can potentially come to knock you out your path. There's going to be something that potentially comes to distract you so that you no longer pursue that thing, so that the distraction becomes more important than the actual promise that you've received for your life. There's going to be all kinds of things that come to test you. You can either let those distractions wipe you out and to keep you from pursuing the intangible, in that moment, the intangible meaning, you can allow those things to keep you from pursuing the things that you have not yet physically seen, or you can use that as fuel to push you towards your destiny that you have not yet seen, but you have experienced it first in this unseen, which is in your soul. And the reason why I say that is because it said it. When he received the word, he had no root in himself. He had nothing to stand on. He had no belief in himself. He had no why to anchor him in those times of tribulation. Oh my gosh. Y'all, because that was not in my notes and I just popped up in my big old head of mine. I was just talking, and when I'm talking about this why, I'm like, bro, am I even making sense? And yes, the root is what keeps a tree stable when the wind is going back and forth, 20 miles per hour winds, 50 miles per hour winds. It is the roots that are keeping the tree stable. If the tree had no roots, it would stumble and it would fall and it would be destroyed. Your why you are pursuing a thing, that is the thing that is keeping you grounded. It is keeping you rooted in these times of turmoil. So whenever you have received something that you have not yet seen, whenever you are inspired to leave your old ways behind, to leave the old man behind, to leave your old friends, your old relationship, your old habits, your old destructive ways, whenever you feel the influence to leave those things behind, there's going to be something that keeps you from pursuing it. And that's how you know it's for you to pursue, because there's going to be tribulation. There's going to be distractions. There's going to be mechanically engineered distractions to keep you from pursuing that thing that is not yet physically here. But you have to keep pushing. You have to allow those things to strengthen you, to strengthen your core, to strengthen you in your passions and in your beliefs, so that you can be ready for when those things in your life do become tangible, when those things that you were trying to pursue actually become a physical thing and it's right in front of you. Those tribulations, those distractions, those different things that were going to be used to offset you, those things are going to be used to help you maintain what it is that you just fought so hard to receive, is what I'm trying to say. That is what I'm trying to say. And so we don't want to be like that person that had no root in themselves and endured only for a little while. And that's what I was getting at in the beginning, right? When I saw, like, going through my subscriptions and I saw so many people that had these pages and stuff, and they didn't continue. They endured only for a little while. We don't want to be those people. We don't want to be the person that started to pursue something but had no root in it, and so we just dropped it and moved on to the next thing. There's a lot of people whose lives are full of that. They never know what they're going to do. 6 months you talk to them, 6 months later you talk to them, their life is completely different. They're pursuing something else. They have no root in themselves. And I'm not saying we don't go through life where we're trying to figure things out, but we shouldn't be in a life where we're not stable in something or sure about one thing. We have to be sure about something. And so we don't want to be that person that's only able to endure for a little while, and then they're down by the wayside and their dreams are they're done. They gave up on it and they pursued something else. We don't want to be those people. So it's important that we are capable of pursuing the intangible by coming to agreement with it, by holding on to that example of why we're doing a thing, so that when the turmoil comes, we're able to withstand it and actually move on in life. And that brings me to another verse in Matthew 18. This one was actually in my notes. But in Matthew 18, verse 18, it says, Jesus said, "Assuredly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." And one thing that I recognize as a Christian, as a person that pursues God and having other people in my life that are doing the same thing, a lot of people put all the responsibility on God, negating the fact that he has given us authority here on earth. And we have to recognize the power that he has given us within ourselves. That is a powerful verse, that whatever we bind on earth, it will be bound in heaven. Whatever we loose on earth, it will be loosed in heaven. Heaven comes into agreement with our actions, right? Heaven comes into agreement with what we try to pursue. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, it's in God. God has it under control. It's in God's hands. All these passive, cliche statements that sound good, that take things off of our hands, that we no longer have responsibility over anything on this earth, over anything over our lives, and we think that God is just in control of every single thing. We have responsibility, we have authority, and we have positions in life and roles that we're supposed to play. So if it doesn't get done, it's not going to get done. If we don't bind it first on earth, it's not going to be bound in heaven. If we don't loose it first on earth, it's not going to be loosed in heaven. If we sit here passively, nothing is going to get done. So if we sit here in this space where I'm just going to stay in the wilderness, I'm just going to stay here, I'm not going to pursue anything, I'm not going to come into agreement with the thing that is intangible right now because it seems too hard, we're not going to pursue it. And that's where it ties back into what I said. If we're going to continue to live an easy life day by day, not taking responsibility over our life, we're going to wind up having a harder life down the road. And so that's what it means. That is the power of agreeing with something that is physically intangible in this moment. We have to come into agreement with it. And that verse is talking about agreement, right? Heaven will back whatever you come into agreement with. And so we can't get upset, or we can't try to blame God, or we can't go about life frustrated when we chose to agree with something that was not good for us, or when we chose to agree with something that keeps us stagnant. It goes back to Lot and his wife. With Lot, he chose to leave. He chose to look forward and agree that he was going to get to the new destination. Lot's wife, however, her soul, her heart, everything was still in Sodom and Gomorrah. And because it was, she looked back when the instruction was to continue and pursue. But because she chose to stay back there, her heart was still in it. She calcified. She got stuck in that place, and she ain't leave. She didn't get to the destination because she chose to come into agreement with something that was not good for her. And so we have to recognize the power and the authority that we have in our life to pursue greater. And heaven backs it. Whatever we do, recognize that verse. Whatever we bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever we loose on earth will be loose in heaven. Stop putting all the responsibility on God and step into authority and the power that he gave you to pursue something greater. Come into agreement with that thing that is not yet physically here, so that you can actually see it come into fruition. It's on us to do the thing. It's on us to pursue the next destination. He'll give us the grace to do it. He'll give us the instruction. He'll give us the how to do it. But it's up to us to complete it. And heaven will back whatever we come into agreement with. That is so powerful. And if you recognize how powerful that is, I think that you will be unstoppable as a human being in life, recognizing that whatever you do, heaven backs. If it's in accordance to God's will, especially if it's in accordance to God's will, and you know that heaven is backed by you, what is stopping you? What is stopping you from pursuing it? It's only yourself. Because remember, once you know that it is something for you to pursue, yes, there's going to be turmoil. There's going to be distraction. There's going to be things that are going to try to keep you out of it. But if you stand firm in yourself, if you stand firm in your why, if you stand firm in your truth, you will be able to endure, and you will be able to actually make that intangible thing physically tangible in your life. It's funny because my pastor said something during one of our services. He said, a person of faith is someone who is in complete agreement with God and his word. And that agreement governs what he says, what he thinks, and what he does. Well, he didn't say he, but what they think, what they do, and what they say. So it is your agreement. Your agreement is your anchor, right? Your why you're pursuing a thing, that is your anchor. That is your form of agreement that's keeping you in those places. And because you agree with it, that governs your actions. That governs what you do. That governs the outcome and how those things will actually become tangible, right? Because Lot's wife wasn't in full agreement, she didn't make it out because she had to first come into agreement with it. Once she was in true agreement, it would have governed how she pursued coming out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that would have governed her from not looking back but only looking forward, because she would have came into agreement with the word, and that would have given her the power to move forward. When you come into agreement with whatever it is, it will give you the power and the grace to pursue the intangible, right? So that, and how it will do that, it will do that by governing how you pursue it, what you're saying, what you're doing, and everything that you do in connection with that thing that you are trying to pursue. It is very important to recognize that what you do in your life is formed by an agreement. So check what you're doing in life and see the deeply rooted agreement behind it, and recognize if that is something that you should break off or something that you should continue to walk in. I would keep chatting, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be sitting here for. I hope that all of this came out good and made sense, because it started to click and made sense in my mind as I continued to go through the episode. So I hope that it made sense to you guys and that it was able to click like how it was able to click in my head. So yeah, I enjoyed doing this with y'all. I thank you guys for being patient, for sitting through this episode. I'm extremely grateful for those who made it to the very end, because again, you were able to endure. You didn't endure just a little while by watching this episode. So I thank you for coming to the very end of this episode. I'm so grateful for those who do come to the end of each and every one of these. My heart is overwhelmed with gratitude and joy towards you guys. But I will see y'all on the next episode of the Upperroom Community Podcast. Thank you for watching. Please share with anybody that comes to mind. Share with everybody you know, because this is how we're able to spread the word. This is how we're able to spread everything, goodness, and we're all able to benefit from this, right? Support is free. And so I'm grateful for you guys' support. Just make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this episode, and I will see y'all on the next episode of the Upper Room Community Podcast. Love you guys. Peace out.